is Samantha, and we're here with Fonda.
Hello.
Hi, Fonda. So my questions for you today are, is bed sharing beneficial and safe during infancy?
Well, I know there are pros and cons. When my children were small, a long time ago, it was very helpful to get a good night's rest, having them close and right there. It was also the lazy way probably for me. I do know there are concerns, like if you roll over on the baby, or if they're laying in there and face down, if they can stop breathing. So probably not the best idea. I think ideally for me it ended up being having a cradle next to the bed, so that I could bring the baby into the bed and nurse him, and then once I was finished, put him back in. I think that's the ideal thing. Of course, sometimes you fall asleep because you're cozy and all. It is nice to have them close by, though. I liked them when they were real small in the room with us, so I do think that's beneficial.
Okay. Did you practice that with both of them?
With the first one, I was definitely more likely to put them back in the cradle and let them sleep. But the second one, I was tired. They were 3 years apart. And so I was guilty with the second one of keeping them in the bed with us more, I think.
And how did that turn out for them once they started growing up and you had to put them in their own own bed?
They actually adjusted just fine. The older one, it was just a few times of putting them back in the bed, back in. He did well, and then by the time the younger one, they shared a room, and they were 3 years apart, so he had that company in there. So they actually did fine. It wasn't a problem. Sometimes it was a bit of a problem getting them to fall asleep on their own, because they were used to that physical. But again, I could get them pretty much almost asleep and then get them to lay down. So they did well. It wasn't a problem with them.
That's good. Were you co-slept with your parents? Do you know?
I know that I did have to share a room with my parents. I have 4 older brothers and me, so there was 5 of us, and it was a pretty small house. I shared a room with them up until I was like 4, but I don't believe I slept in the bed with them. I just was in the room, kind of in my own bed, as I was older. I don't know about as an infant, if I actually was in the bed.
Okay.
I'm not certain.
That's good. So you would recommend parents to put the baby in their own crib?
I would. Like I said, if you're not comfortable, if you can get them in their own room and you're comfortable with like the baby monitor and all, that probably is the most ideal. But if at the least, if you're not comfortable, at least putting them in the room with you in their own cradle. Now though, I know they make beds where the attachment is attached to the side of the bed. That's kind of neat. At least they're in their own space so that you don't roll over on them. They don't roll out of the bed. They don't get smushed, That's probably okay, but really I think the safer and the most acceptable way nowadays is definitely in your own bed if you can.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Was it for today.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to be going over the assigned article today, which is bed sharing beneficial and safe during infancy? And just to give a little bit of history on that, back in the olden days, they would separate the mother from the child right after birth to reduce any risk or infections for either of them. But it was later surmised that it was better for them to be together instead of separate because of emotional and psychological reductions that were done, because they weren't together as often as they should have been, and also bonding didn't happen as often as it should have as well. And so that was also a very serious part into that. However, bringing it back to more recent times, it's become very controversial for the Western culture because of SIDS. SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome, and sudden infant death syndrome is when a baby suffocates or isn't able to breathe well because either he or she is wrapped up in too many blankets and they can't breathe well because of it. A parent or a sibling rolls on top of them while they're sleeping, or even the baby itself just rolling face down onto a pillow and not being able to move because he doesn't or she doesn't know how to move otherwise. Additionally, there are also more severe causes to SIDS, such as the parent or someone else in the household consuming alcohol, doing drugs, doing any type of narcotics that aren't really beneficial for the child or the parent themselves. However, it is said that it's also very beneficial for a child or infant to be sleeping in the same bed or even in the same room as a parent, such as it just being more convenient for breastfeeding, for helping the child when they're injured, sick, disturbed, irritated, really just about anything. And they can promote any affection, love that is actually required for the child to kind of mediate any irritatedness that they currently have. And that's why it's such a big problem in the Western culture, because not everyone agrees on what or how they should raise their child. But thank you. Have a great day.
We're here with Anthony Ambrosi. He is going to be a father very soon. And so I just wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on bed sharing during infancy?
I think of it as, look back 300 years ago, maybe even more. You know, we're still here, right? But do you think that child 300 years ago had a crib to sleep in without its mother? No, I don't think that. And I think that child turned out fine because here I am, you know. I grew up.
True.
So did that kid. That kid grew up to make something that made something that made something that made me, you know?
Yeah.
And here I am, and you know, kids need their moms, so put them with their moms, you know? Like, you don't want to like make that child think that it doesn't have anybody there because it's in a crib by itself and with a bunch of white flashing lights around it because it's in a hospital or something, you know what I mean?
I will be discussing why we should not co-sleep with infants. Here are some of the cons. Heavy blankets, big pillows, or anything else can cause suffocation to the baby. Parents rolling over on babies can cause broken bones or any other bad injury. The baby is more at risk of falling off the bed when there's no railings or no guards because the mattress is way higher than the ground, and the baby is more prone to broken bones or death. And babies can end up in tight spaces, like for example between the mattress and the headboard, or between two other pillows, who knows. Next, I'm going to be talking about some of the pros right now. Skin to skin contact can decreases physiological stress. It makes the baby feel safe and comfortable. And it strengthens the bonding between the parents and the baby. It also increases the time to breastfeed because there's less distractions, it's more peaceful for the mother, and more privacy. And it makes the baby and the mother sleep better because they both feel safe, with each other. Like the mother is not worried about the baby getting injured, or the baby feels more safe with the mother. However, through my research, I found the bed box for infants that puts a child in its own safe place on the parent's bed. I hope this clears up any questions you had about co-sleeping with infants. Thank you.